Michael Paul Beasley Jr., born January 9th, 1989.
I ain't want to play at all, nigga. I ain't want to play. I was one of my favorite people and they was just laughing at me and It was just laughing at me, man. I was hot, nigga. I was hot, nigga. And y'all laughed at me.
Michael Beasley came into the NBA as the second overall pick in 2008, just 1 year after Kevin Durant was taken second overall himself. And at the time, the gap between the two didn't feel as wide as history makes it look today. In some circles, there was real conversations about Beasley being just as good, if not better in his own way. Coming off one of the most dominant freshman seasons we've ever seen at Kansas State, where he was putting up numbers that didn't even look real, the expectation wasn't just that he'd be solid, it was that he'd be a star, a franchise player, a problem the league would have to figure out. And it wasn't just outside hype either. Before Beasley ever got to Kansas State, he called Kevin Durant asking how he became so dominant at Texas. Durant's response was simple: "You're better than me, you'll be fine." That kind of belief, mixed with the level of production, made it feel like the NBA was next in line. But that version of Michael Beasley never fully showed up. The flashes were there, the talent was obvious, but when it came to actually becoming that guy at the NBA level, something never quite came together the way it was supposed to. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Michael Beasley was a 6'9" forward from Prince George's County, Maryland, who came up as one of the most talked about high school players in the country. A McDonald's All-American, he was known early for being a matchup nightmare. Too skilled for bigs and too strong and polished for wing players. By the time he got to Kansas State, the expectations were already sky high. But what he did as a freshman somehow pushed him even higher. Beasley averaged over 26 points and 12 rebounds a game, leading the nation in rebounding while scoring at a level that didn't feel normal for a freshman. He racked up double-doubles at a historic rate and made it look easy, dominating games without needing plays called for him every possession. What made it different wasn't just the numbers, it was how effortless everything looked. Face-up game, mid-range, touch around the rim, ability to get to his spots whenever he wanted. He wasn't just productive, he looked like someone who couldn't be stopped. And in a class loaded with future NBA talent, Beasley stood out as one of the most NBA-ready players in the country. By the time the season ended, he was viewed as a lock at the top of the draft and would have went first overall if not for the generational Derrick Rose. He eventually went second in 2008. At that point, the conversation wasn't whether he'd be good, it was how good. All-star, franchise player, future scoring leader. The belief was that Beasley had everything needed to take the next step and become one of the league's best. Stunt number 1, the game didn't scale. Coming out of K-State, Michael Beasley didn't just look like a future NBA player, he looked like someone who was going to dominate the league the same way he dominated college as a consensus All-American and Conference Player of the Year. A 6'9" forward who could score from anywhere, rebound at a high level, and get his shot off when he wanted. He was used to being the best player on the floor every single night, and more importantly, he was used to doing it his way. The offense ran through him, the game slowed down for him, and no matter what the defense did, he could still find a way to be effective. That kind of freedom, mixed with that level of production, is what made people believe he was next in line to become a star. But the NBA doesn't work like that. At the next level, the advantages that made Beasley special didn't hit the same. He wasn't overwhelming power forwards the way he did in college, and he wasn't quick enough on the perimeter to consistently create space against elite wings. That in-between style where he could face up, use his strength, and rely on skill became harder to lean on when everyone was just as strong, just as long, and just as disciplined. And unlike the true top-tier players, he didn't have one elite go-to trait that forced defenses to completely adjust to him. That's where the gap started to show. Players like Kevin Durant came into the league with something that translated immediately. His shooting, his length, his ability to score over anyone gave him a clear identity from day one. Beasley didn't have that same clarity. He needed touches, rhythm, and a certain type of offense to be at his best, and in the NBA, especially early in your career, those things aren't guaranteed. So instead of walking into the league and taking over, Beasley found himself trying to figure out where he fit. One night he looked like the player everyone expected, scoring effortlessly and showing flashes of that college dominance. The next, he'd disappear into the flow of the game, unable to impose himself the same way. That inconsistency wasn't about effort, it was about a game that didn't naturally scale to the NBA environment the way people thought it would. And from the very beginning, instead of dominating, Beasley was adjusting. Stunt number 2, the situation never let him settle. Even with all that, Michael Beasley still had a real chance to figure it out early. The problem is, the situation he walked into didn't give him the time or space to do it. He was drafted by the Miami Heat, a team that already had its franchise player in Dwayne Wade and was trying to get back to winning immediately. This wasn't a rebuilding situation where a young player could come in and make mistakes, go through them, and gradually become the guy. This was a team with expectations, structure, and a clear hierarchy. Beasley wasn't being developed to take over, he was being asked to fit in, and for a player who was used to having the game revolve around him, that adjustment came fast. Instead of learning through freedom, he was learning through restriction, and just as he was starting to find any kind of rhythm, everything shifted again. After only 2 seasons, Miami made the move that changed the entire franchise direction, bringing in LeBron James and Chris Bosh. The move made Beasley expendable overnight. Whatever role he wanted to carve out, whatever confidence he was trying to build, it was gone just that quickly. He was traded before he ever had a real chance to establish himself. That reset mattered, because when he got to Minnesota for the first time, you could actually see what it was supposed to look like. In the 2010-2011 season, Beasley averaged nearly 20 points a game and looked like a legitimate scoring option. The talent was still there, the confidence started to come back, and for a moment it felt like he was finally on track, but it didn't hold. The very next season, injuries limited him to just 47 games and his production dropped. The momentum he had built disappeared again, and from that point forward, the consistency never returned. From Minnesota to Phoenix and beyond, Beasley became a player moving from team to team, trying to find a role instead of defining one. And that's what makes this part of his career so important. Because right when he needed stability the most, when he needed time to grow into what he was supposed to be, his situation kept changing. And in the NBA, especially for a player still figuring things out, those resets don't just slow you down, they change everything completely. Stunt number 3, he never stayed consistent long enough. By this point, the talent was no longer the question. People had already seen it. The scoring ability, the touch, the feel for getting buckets. It showed up too often for anyone to deny it. The real issue was that it never stayed long enough to turn into something dependable. That became the difference. With Beasley, you'd get nights where he looked exactly like the player everyone expected. He'd come out aggressive, scoring at 3 levels, making tough shots look easy, and controlling the offense like a true number 1 option. In those moments, it was clear he had the ability to be that guy at the NBA level. But then, just as quickly, there would be stretches where he faded into the background, not imposing himself the same way, not demanding the ball, and not impacting the game at the same level. The best players don't just show you what they can do when things are going well, they show you on most nights, regardless of the situation, regardless of the role, and regardless of the pressure. That's what separates a talented player from a star. Beasley never made that jump, not because he didn't have the ability, but because he couldn't sustain it long enough for it to define him. And over time, that starts to shape how teams see you. Part of that came down to how he responded to everything around him. From early on, Beasley was someone who felt things deeply, whether it was criticism, role changes, or situations that didn't go his way. And while that didn't take away from his talent, it often showed up in his consistency. There were moments where instead of pushing through adversity and forcing his presence on the game, he would drift, adjust, or fall out of rhythm entirely. And in a league that moves fast, those moments don't get overlooked, they get remembered. Because once inconsistency becomes your label, everything changes. Coaches trust you less, roles become smaller, and opportunities get shorter. You're no longer given time to figure things out, you're expected to fit immediately or move on. And for a player like Beasley, who needed rhythm and confidence to be at his best, that kind of environment made it harder to ever fully lock in. So even though his talent never left, the version of Michael Beasley that people expected to see every night never fully became reality. All in all, Michael Beasley's career ended up going in a very different direction than what many people expected when he entered the league. After early stops in Miami and Minnesota, he never fully established himself as a franchise player, and instead of becoming a scorer teams brought in for short stretches, he bounced from team to team, including Phoenix, a return to Miami, and later runs with the Knicks and Lakers before his time in the NBA eventually faded out. Overseas, especially in China, he found success again, putting up big numbers and showing the same talent that made him so highly touted in the first place. More recently, Beasley has been back in the spotlight through his interview with Shannon Sharpe, where he opened up about his career, his personal life, and everything he was dealing with behind the scenes. The emotional moments, especially when he spoke about his mother and how certain situations affected him, gave a more clear picture of what he carried throughout his career. But at the end of the day, the expectation was for him to become a star in the NBA, and while the talent was always there, he never sustained the level needed to become what many expected for these reasons. Salute, much respect. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.